Madam Speaker, in many countries where there is a dominant majority and significant minorities, we see a whole spectrum of how multiracialism is lived. This ranges from the negative, such as with oppression and rejection, to simply ignoring them to live any way they want, to the positive, integrating and embracing them as full-fledged members of the community. There are also societies that force minorities into assimilation. We are our own working model multiracial society, and the most important part of which is to instill the sense of belonging for our minorities. This sense of belonging of our minorities is crucial in ensuring that Singapore remains resilient against any force that threatens to tear our society apart. As minorities adjust to integrate, they continually sense whether the majority is embracing the inclusive society, no different from Singapore, for Singapore. The warm embrace of the majority and consequently a sense of belonging by the minorities makes the final third foundation for our multiracial society to live in harmony. On the contrary, in countries which instead play up racial and religious differences by the dominant community, we see unhappiness within the minority community festering and in certain cases exploited. Everyone here would be familiar with the Iraq conflict and pronouncement of territories of the Islamic Caliphate by ISIS. But what's more interesting is that individuals from minority groups from countries so far away have also joined this war. The Sofan groups estimate 27,000 foreign fighters at the end of 2015. Why that many? I heard former US Undersecretary of the Department of Home Security, Jane Lute, said, they came from everywhere because they belong to nowhere. There is at least a battalion of Uyghur and Chechen fighters within ISIS. BBC reported it's the general colonial attitude of the Han Chinese officials to Uyghurs that generate huge resentment. In the end, there were violent clashes between the Muslim Uyghurs and Han Chinese in Xinjiang, China, such as that in 2014, as a result of the radicalization of the Uyghurs. In Chechnya, what started out as a nationalist uprising in Russia's North Caucasus region in the 1990s was met by a brutal clampdown, which in turn spawned a violent Islamist movement. Chechnyan and Uyghur militants spilled their fight to Syria, hoping they can feel they belong and call it home. Thus today, we see that the rejection or sense of rejection of a minority group in the community or the use of force to make them conform to the majority have not only caused a loss in a sense of belonging, but often resulted in dire consequences, with some of the oppressed turning towards violence and terrorism. Even Singapore is not immune to the growing threat of terrorism. The government has arrested a dozen Singaporeans, most of whom were self-radicalized. Several intended to go to the Middle East to join ISIS, and a few were planning to mount attacks in Singapore. The threat is real, and our best measure in tackling terrorism is to strengthen the sense of belonging of the minorities, and to this context, for the Muslims and Malays in Singapore. We need this sense of belonging and an inclusive society to be pervasive even while the Muslim communities fortify their strength within to repel these threats. It is this sense of belonging that motivates Muslim leaders in Singapore to stand ready to come forward, to diffuse conflicts, and not exploit them, nor goad the community to extremism or terrorism. In no small measure, too, it is this sense of belonging that the community responded to reject extremism and terrorism. Madam Speaker, I'm grateful we in Singapore continue to tend to our racial harmony with great care and concern. The amendment of the Constitution to ensure all ethnic groups a chance at becoming an elected president will be remembered as a prudent foresight of the government and great generosity of the majority. In the passing of this amendment, I see a continued effort at acknowledging the aspirations, quiet aspirations, of my community and all the minorities. and thus see a commitment to our multiracial and multireligious compact. My community and I appreciate this. At the end of the day, racial inclusiveness and harmony is up to us, you and me. Our diversity will only become our strength if we consciously ensure that the generosity to be inclusive are ingrained into our fabric of our society. It has to be embodied in our thoughts and actions. This responsibility cannot rest on government alone, nor can it be just a top-down approach. Everyone needs to play a part in this, to integrate, to embrace, to understand and adapt. This sense of inclusiveness in Singapore is unique, and we need to continue working hard to preserve this. Yesterday, the Americans voted. I don't know what the outcome is yet, but I saw an article in New York Times by Imbolo Mbue, who is the author of the novel Behold the Dreamers. She migrated from Cameroon and became a US citizen years ago, and she wrote, "I've seen the best of America during my time here. When I was considering dropping out of graduate school because of financial constraints, an American professor helped me get a scholarship so I could complete my master's degree. Twice, I had an American co-worker give me hand-me-downs because I couldn't afford to buy clothes. An American employer once said to me, at a time when I was questioning who I was, 'You are a breath of fresh air.' Being black, female, and an immigrant, and for a good portion of my life here, low income too, I've weathered my share of prejudice. But the empathy Americans have shown me far outweighs the unkindness. That is why on election day, I'll be voting for empathy." Yesterday too, I felt a poignant moment when PM said, "As Mr. Yaakob Ibrahim observed yesterday, this would be our first Malay elected president after more than 46 years, since our first president, Encik Yusof Ishak." And PM finished with, "I look forward to this." There was spontaneous applause from my colleagues, Chinese and minorities alike. I felt generosity, I felt empathy. That is why, for this amendment bill, I too am voting for empathy. Thank you.